Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Now, I mean, I'm a pop culture junkie, and you know, one of my favorite comedies of all time
Oh.
also happens to share the name
Mm.
of your band.
Hmm.
Now, I knew there was a situation with Vernon Reed and the Wayans family in terms of
Ah.
Living Color and In Living Color. But actually, I believe in Vernon's situation, I believe Living Color actually, maybe for the pilot, took the logo of Living Color. So I know
Yeah.
that it got to litigious proportions. But
Yeah.
I always wanted to know, um, when you own a name like Arrested Development, assume that you own the name Arrested Development,
We do. Yeah.
I know he did. I know he did.
does that, even if you're in, and I know you guys are still active, but do you have to be wholly active in order to maintain the name? And does that allow you, like, how does that happen when another entity comes along with your name? Like, I knew there was a situation where Prince actually owned the term the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when the family, the nothing compares to you, one and done group that he produced in '85,
Screams of
imploded.
passion.
Yeah, when they imploded, he still retained the night rights to the name the family. So when Diddy wanted to name his album, Puff Daddy and the Family for the
Yeah.
No Way Out album, he actually had to break off Prince a little something
Yeah.
just to lease the name from him. But still, Prince still maintained that name. So when Arrested Development came out, was it like, is it a separate copyright for television shows, or when you own Arrested Development, it's for any entity that's named that? Like if I wanted cereal or
Yeah.
a sport or just something, you own it. So how does that happen? Like, are you talking to Ron Howard or like?
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah. So what how trademarks work is that if the consumer is going to be confused about your product called Arrested Development and our product Arrested Development, then there's a trademark issue. So if there was a restaurant called Arrested Development, probably no problem. If there was, a corn stand called Arrested Development, probably no problem. But TV shows tend to, or can, if they're successful, have soundtracks that they put out on CD or record or whatever version is out at the time of music mediums. Sometimes they make movies. In those movies. Exactly. In those movies, there could be confusion as to when they put out a soundtrack and when we do. And so
Definitely.
we had trademarked the name back in 92 or something. It wasn't like before we came out. We trademarked it after we came out because this was our first album. We're learning like, oh hell, we need to trademark the name. So so we did have to take Ron Howard and Fox to court because they had stolen the name. And you mentioned a few other examples.
Did they know they were stealing the name?
No.
Definitely. No,
Did they?
knew.
Okay. I thought they tried to act like y'all they didn't know who y'all were.
Oh, y'all caught
they,
us.
They knew,
right.
They knew, but they assumed that we were washed up, we had no money, and that we couldn't fight. And so it was the wrong assumption. Yeah, they felt like we'll take it and just basically, just steamroll them. And they tried to do that because, these big corporations, they have a lot of money. They have long money, so they could go into litigation
out,
court
right.
for a long time. And so I had to go into court to fight, and I had to tell the story of how we started, some of which I shared here, in front of the court to show the blood, sweat, and tears of what this group meant to me. So it wasn't just a trademark to me. It was a thing. You know what I mean? It was a baby in a sense. And so when the people that was in court then heard that story, Fox and Ron Howard just said, okay, we need to settle. And so we settled out of court